I'm Matt. Wait. Something's wrong. Something's missing. What is it? Oh, that's right. Jamie's missing. Well, I'm Matt, and on behalf of Jamie, we are Shade Tree Chefs. All right, Jamie is gone. He's been gone for a couple of weeks doing some work stuff. We'll be back for next episode. Actually, we'll be back in a few days from when I am recording this. It's been actually a fun couple of weeks. I know we've recently now switched to an every other week format. So right after our last episode that dropped, I know it was kind of mentioned that I signed up for a cooking class, and I'm not going to keep this. This isn't going to be the whole episode, but it was a 10-week class at a local restaurant here in Milwaukee called Braze. Through it, we did knife skills and butchering, stocks and sauces, reductions, vinaigrettes, meat and fish butchering and cooking. Pasta, we made fresh pasta, vegetables and grains. Like we made a risotto, we made bread, focaccia, pastry, and then we did like a menu planning because there's really what ends with a graduation dinner, which turns out to be pretty much a 8 to 9 hour day of working in the restaurant. Which I know everyone's probably like, "Wow, that sounds kind of weird." It was amazing. It was a lot of fun. So as a group on that last class we kind of went over wine pairing, wine tasting, and then we sat down and we talked about what we wanted to cook. And this was a closed event. Ended up being which we didn't find out till that morning. So we had to show up at 11 a.m. It was 65 people. So this wasn't like this was an event. So everyone sat down at the same time, and when it was your turn, it was a 4-course meal. There it was. You had to get out fairly quickly all 65 orders, which brought up like, wow, we get there. We the last class we talked about what ingredients and kind of some things we wanted to do, and then the chef owner Dave he kind of put it together as a menu idea, and we had the opportunity to change things we didn't like, kind of roll with it as it goes. So with that, I mean, we had the 4-course. We'd made focaccia. We had a team that made it was like an herb crusted polenta frite with pea ricotta puree and arugula and radish salad. I could be a little bit wrong on this, as this the list I have here was at the beginning of the day. Second course was a seared scallops with a farro salad, and asparagus salad with pesto. I was on the main course, which was pappardelle with braised lamb and a mushroom and ramp ragu. So I kind of want to break this down. So we show up at 11 a.m. Dinner's at 6. We kind of meet in the classroom he has in the back of the restaurant, and it was first things first that lamb has to start getting braised, and the pasta has to get made. So we're the biggest group. There's 4 of us, and it's like, all right, I don't want to say I got nominated, but I was kind of being pushed. I know I'm a meat guy, right? I'm a shade tree chef. I'm sitting there like, whoa, I'm just a shade tree chef here, So I get to butcher the lamb. I would say the bad thing about was, and I take that. I don't want to say it was really bad, but we all had to split up. So someone started on the pasta right away. So here I have like 3 lamb. I don't even know what cuts they were, shanks. So I could see there was some rib cage, and then there was like maybe a shoulder bone to the neck bone. 3 huge hunks. So it's like, all right, pretty easy to get, that rib piece out, really kind of just out there. But the bones underneath, a little bit tougher to navigate, right? Because you can't see them. I was trying to get 1 inch by 1 inch pieces, which at times, the meat just wasn't thick enough. So I started doing that. Someone's making the rub for it. I said someone's starting with the pasta, the pappardelle, and then someone was going to start braising. I'm sorry, not braising. They're going to start what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, well, not charring, um, browning the meat. That's it. So, I'm going. I probably get through one, maybe one and a half. Boom, put it in a bowl. She takes it out, starts doing her thing. Finish it up, get the rest. I go take the bowl from her, give her the rest of it. At that point, I did raise my hand to be on the focaccia team, which at 1 o'clock was like, that's when we're going to meet to start making the dough and all of that for that. So before then, actually a partner that was starting on the dough for our pasta was still sitting there really getting the egg yolks separated. So to put it in perspective, for enough pasta for 65 people, it took, now he's the one that counted it. I believe it was 120 egg yolks, 18 whole eggs, and 36 cups of flour. So he's not even done separating the egg yolks at this point. So I hop in, help take care of that, kind of get that. He's going to go mix it. I go kind of help out with the focaccia. I come back, and the whole team is sitting there kneading this dough. And I felt bad. I'm the only one there on this team not helping out with that. All said and done, it took us, I think it was, obviously he started, I want to say by the time we really got going in the kitchen, 11:45 or noon. So, he was nonstop, and the rest of us, like I said, I'll say maybe 1:15 to like 5:30, working this pasta. Work the dough, have to let it rest, check it, re-knead it, let it rest a little bit more. Then, we had 3 stand mixers, the KitchenAid, with the pasta attachments, running it through. So we actually only started with 2. I'm cutting hunks of the dough, kind of rolling it out so it could go through the machines, right? 3 machines, 4 of us. So I'm doing that, and eventually we have like 10 massive sheet pans filled with rolled out pasta. It's like, okay, well, we're running out of room, so it's like time to cut. So we kind of shifted. I started rolling it, cutting it, and we just kind of kept going. And like I said, it was a long process. Dinner started. Unfortunately, I don't know how everyone else's went, because we're kind of on my own course. Everyone helped out each other when it came to serving. And the last course actually was like a lemon cream and poached rhubarb and shortbread, like crumble. I really didn't get to try much of anything other than my own dish. But anyways, so yeah, it was a lot of work. Like I said, I'm not going too deep into it. It was a long day. It went by fast, really fast. It was a lot of fun. Like, I got done, and I was like, can we do this next Sunday? As crazy as it sounds. You kind of got that feel of how a real restaurant operates. Although ours was a little different circumstance. I guess maybe you could say it more like a catering style event, right? Like a wedding where you kind of plate serve everybody to the table. But just an amazing experience. It was a lot of fun that I would do again. And if you're in the Milwaukee area and it seems cool, like I said, I'm not trying to advertise for it, but it was really cool. But anyways, moving on for that, I had to bring it up just simply because it was fun for me, and I think everybody in the class enjoyed it. A lot of hard work, but it paid off. We were trying new things as we went, which was a lot of fun. So moving on to the real topic of this week was Father's Day, which was this past Sunday. So leading up, kind of asked my dad, hey, what do you want to do? And he said he wanted me to cook for him. So I don't know, it was like Wednesday or Thursday. I'm like, I should probably reach out, see what he wants to eat. And he says, well, just keep it simple, just do like brats and hamburgers. I'm like, Dad, I can't do that for a couple of reasons. First off, we're going to get sick of brats and burgers, right? Summer's just getting going here, at least in Wisconsin. Granted, we've had nice weather, grilling weather, but maybe not necessarily tons of days where you're just hanging outside all day. And second off, I have to do a podcast, right? I need something to cook, something to do. So it's like, all right, well, whatever. So I asked him, I said, what do you want? Well, I don't know, so I give him a day. So, I said, let me know. Get nothing from him. So, all right, it's on me now. So a couple, and I could be wrong in this. I remember going to a local German establishment, and my father was like, oh, I don't like German food. And then he had it, and he said he really liked it. Now, he doesn't really remember it, but I believe it was beef roulade. I might be mispronouncing that. So I'm like, you know what? Let's try that. It's one of those things that I've kind of had in my head of trying to make. So let's do it. So how are we going to round this off? So I used what tried and true, because I've done it before, and you can find it on our website. I'm not really going to talk about it because we already have, is the red cabbage recipe we used. Like I said, recipe is on our website. Good recipe. I enjoy it. So we got the roulade. We have the red cabbage, and I was thinking, what else do I do? Do I do a gnocchi, which we did do in that, actually the same episode. And I started looking a little bit, and I'll never be able to pronounce the proper name for it, but decided to do a German bread dumpling. And then I was like, well, let's do dessert. And one thing going back to the class that we did was a tart, like a custard-filled tart with fresh fruit on it. And I said, you know what? I really enjoyed that. I'll do that. I know I should be able to pull it off, right? So the night before, I knew we were busy. We went over to the in-laws Saturday night, get home. Like, well, let's get going. I'm going to make the custard. I'm going to make the dough for the for the dessert, right? Let's get that out of the way. And I'm not gonna be able to pronounce this properly because I believe the crust it's French. It's like pâte sucre, maybe SECRE. And you can Google it, right? You'll come up with a bunch of recipes. Really, it's a bunch of pastry flour. Like this recipe I found was 510 grams of pastry flour, 350 grams of unsalted softened butter, 1 egg, and a pinch of salt. So and I actually messed up a batch. I had mixed all of the dry ingredients together and not just the pastry flour and the salt, right? So essentially, you take your softened butter and your sugar, put them in a stand mixer is best, and just turn it on and let it get kind of to that fluffy state. At that point, you add your egg, turn it back on. Scrape your sides if it's sticking. So everything kind of mix up, and then add your flour in. Get it just to where it's just combined. Then you can kind of roll it up. I put it in the fridge. No real resting, right? You don't have any yeast or anything. It's not going to rise on you. And really, in hindsight, it almost reminds you of I don't want to say it exactly, but almost like a graham cracker-like crust. So I'll get that going. I'm going to make the custard or the pastry cream. There again, plenty of recipes out there. This one called for 3 egg yolks, 60 grams of granulated sugar, a little cornstarch, about 15 grams, about 125 milliliters of heavy cream and milk, 125 each, a little bit of unsalted butter, around 15 grams, and a quarter teaspoon, of vanilla extract. So this one actually kind of freaked me out as I was doing it again, and I've made this once before. When I was in the class, you put the yolks in a bowl, whisk in the sugar, cornstarch, and then you bring the cream and milk kind of get it. Not, I don't want to say to a boil, but you get it where it's steaming, and then you slowly pour about half the mixture from that pan into your bowl, which has your egg, and you whisk it. And then once that's kind of combined, you pour that back into your pot where the other half of your egg mixture is. I'm sorry, not your egg mixture, your milk and cream mixture is, and then bring it to a boil. And well, I shouldn't say to a boil. You bring it till it starts thickening. So you're going, and I'm whisking, and at a certain point, as you're going, this isn't like a slow thickening. It was like, here it was, like you went from having just these ingredients that are almost soup-like to where it's like when you scramble eggs, right? It starts hardening up. It's like, oh, I had it too hot. The eggs are scrambled. I mean, I've ruined it, so I just keep going, take it off the heat, boom, thickens up. So I'm like, well, I gotta try it. It was exactly how it should be, but like I said, I was scared because big time when you get like, a lot of times you get like hollandaise sauce or anything where you're adding egg to a warm mixture, the biggest thing is, that you don't scramble your eggs, right? You want to slowly cook them and not scramble them. So I get all that, put it in the fridge, let that go overnight. Next morning, I get going on everything else. The beef, I cannot talk today. The beef rouladen called for 8 slices of top round beef, about 4 by 6 inches in size, and a quarter inch of thickness. So I go to the local grocer. Because, I came up with this probably on Friday. I think it was Friday, and go to the store the same day. So I stopped at home, thought of it all, just went to the store, grabbed it. Well, I go to the store, and I found they actually had top round beef. And I eyeballed them, like, that seems about a quarter inch thick. And it came in 2 slices, but I'm like, these are pretty big. So I bought 2 packages of them. Now, it does tell you when you're doing it is to pound it, right, to get it under that quarter inch. Disclaimer right now, these were thicker than a quarter of an inch. The other issue I ran into is I cut the first piece, instead of like lengthwise, I cut it widthwise, right? So against the grain instead of with the grain. And then I looked at the picture on the recipe, and it looked like it was with the grain. So I'm like, oh, I already messed this up. Well, I have 3 other pieces. We'll cut it. No, I should have, honestly, in hindsight, I should have just left them as they were and rolled them. Other issue I did run into was, like I mentioned, these were thicker than a quarter inch thick. I mean, these were 3/8, so I'm pounding them, I'm pounding, I cut, I'm pounding again. And like I said, I cut some of them with the grain. So then when I went to roll them, it wasn't very wide. So it was, you couldn't really tuck, at one point in the recipe it says, well, take the beef off on the edges and tuck it in to kind of hold everything in. Yeah. In hindsight, probably should have looked a little bit more, but, so anyways, back to the recipe. So you take your beef, you pound it out, have it cut however you want. You want to do full pieces. If I would have taken those 4 pieces, left them whole, I could have rolled them all up. So it called for, a third cup of like a German yellow mustard. That's more of an eyeball. Kind of coat it. Think of you're coating a brisket or a pulled pork or ribs, right? Your binder. That's kind of how I took it. And maybe a little bit thicker. Because for this, there's really not much you're trying to get to stick to it, right? You're going to roll it in there anyways. Bacon, so there again, depends how many you're making. It called for 8 slices, whatever. Throw a piece, so you get your mustard down, throw your bacon down, then take, called for German pickles sliced lengthwise. So I'm looking, I go to the store, and I see dill pickles. I see I forgot the other popular one, but then the gherkins is, what I was thinking. And they're just these little guys, right? You can find dill pickles, a sandwich slice. And in hindsight, I should have probably just tried those because they're nice meaty size. So I got these little guys, and I'm trying to just slice them up. Which worked. I was able to get, a few cuts done on each of them, roll it in there. So boom, lay down the bacon. I'm spacing out these pickles. Not really sure how, we're going to kind of adjust as we roll. And then, it also called for like a one medium yellow onion chopped. And I apologize. Before you put the mustard, I threw some, salt and pepper, took my grinders, kind of just covered it a little bit. And then it was rolling it. And like I said, some of them were a little thin. I used butcher twine. You could use toothpicks. And I tied them off. Worked out all right. Like I said, a couple of them were thin. The first two where I thought I messed up were probably the nicest. They weren't the thickest. They were the longest. And I'll get a little more into some of that a little bit later when my review of it. So if you you get those in the pan, you brown them, and then really the next step is you're kind of making your gravy. And I've done I actually covered, I want to say, episode 1 of season 2, where I did the beef rib tips. No, not rib tips. Spare ribs, beef spare ribs, whatever it was. And that gravy, I had to work. I had to add things to it. Where this was said and done, it was just getting it thick, and it was amazing. So get some butter, some cooking oil, a medium yellow onion chopped. It called for 1 clove of garlic minced, a small leek, a large carrot, a large celery stalk. So you kind of I chopped all them up, put the onion in, right? I browned my meat in the pan, didn't clean it. Get this a little more oil, a little butter in there. I throw the onions in, get those translucent, add the celery stalk, the carrot, the leek, let those go for a little bit, and then add a cup of dry red wine. At this point, we're going to deglaze the pan from any brown bits that are sticking. So you kind of let that go, boil for, a couple of minutes, and then add it. The recipe called for 2 cups of strong beef broth. With that being said, I used beef stock simply because a beef broth, as it boils down, it reduces. It's not going to increase in flavor, right? It's just going to, you don't have any marrow in it. With the beef stock, you can actually make that a glaze, a demi-glaze. So I went that route knowing that some of this is going to cook off. And as it does, it's just going to bring more of that beef flavor to my dish. A tablespoon of tomato paste, a bay leaf. It called for a little, salt, pepper. At the end, we'll get to that where it was when we get there. So kind of get that all in there. Put the meat, nestle it in there, cover it in my Dutch oven. Put it on the grill, put it in the oven, however you want to do it, about 325 for roughly 90 minutes, or until you can kind of cut through it. The meat is tender. And really, when you look at what this calls for, it's much like I've made a few other Italian dishes, and you have, as they call it, sofrito, which has your carrot, celery, and onion. Right, and a lot of tomato sauces start with that. So it's like, and I don't remember the French term for what they call that base to that sauce. So we get for it 90 minutes. Remove the cooked beef, and then you would add some chilled butter and some cornstarch or flour just for thickening. I kind of eyeballed it, added a little bit. Have it back on the heat to thicken. At this point, I'm going to also taste it, right? See if I need to reseason it. I liked where it was. It wasn't too salty. It was a very flavorful gravy. Actually, I did miss one point. After I removed the meat, I then strained it to get with a colander to get all the hunks of carrot, onion, leek, onion out of it. And I chose to. I could have just left them in there as is, and then you'd have little chunks of it. But I decided I'm going to throw it in the blender, kind of puree them, right? They'll chop up a little easier, seeing that they're cooked, and at this point, mush essentially, right? So I puree that, pour it back in with the mixture, mix it in there. Right there, my thought was it's gonna do two things. I know we extracted a lot of flavor, but it's also going, it still has a little bit left in it, and also it's going to help act as a little bit of a thickening agent in itself, right? So I want to do that instead of having to add other things to it. I decided to use a little cornstarch, threw it in there, let it on the stovetop for a little bit, and then put the meat back in, kind of warm it back up. Now, this doesn't take a lot of time, but put it in, and then I was just kind of spooning the gravy over it to cover it and help moisten it. At that point, I really wasn't turning them because, all honesty, some of this meat was kind of coming apart at this point. I will admit I did go a little over the 90 minutes just due to company being over. My sister did stop over, so I probably went 15, 20 minutes after that 90-minute mark, just simply not to get up. She was not going to stay for dinner. And I knew it wouldn't hurt the meat or anything. So it was in a little bit longer. Nothing wrong with it. And voila, there it was. I thought my review of it was the meat was too thick. I think, and I would do it again. I would get the round beef. I try getting a big hunk of it and cut it myself, right? I have a meat slicer. Because as I rolled it and as I ate it, the beef to filling ratio was off. The filling kind of got lost. The beef had good flavor. Like I said, the gravy was really good. Didn't have to mess with that at all. But some of the innards, you kind of lost the pickle in there, the onion, kind of non-existent, in that roll. With that being said, too, I'd probably, like I said earlier, I wouldn't cut that. I would get my nice big piece, and so be it, right? And stuff it. I think I went a little light on the stuffing I did, but also I think I messed up with how I cut it, which didn't help me while I was trying to roll it to keep everything in. So I'd keep that big piece. Make sure you can get it thin. I think like if you've made a schnitzel before, right? Nice thin, because at that point you can get that ratio a little bit better, where you can taste either that piece of bacon or the pickle or onion that might blend in a little more. Where I think it kind of got lost with this. Still, it was good. You think of a roast, a beef roast with a really nice gravy. It was a success for that, but I think it probably missed a little bit on the roulade piece of it. And I will admit I've never had it at a restaurant, so I guess maybe I should go try it, and I could be a little bit of a better judge. Obviously, like I said, we mentioned before, we've had an episode before, red cabbage, that turned out just as good as what I remember. The other unknown was the bread dumpling. And I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and then backtrack. So while reading the recipe, when you actually cook it, it says, hey, get it to just before boiling, where you get a few bubbles coming up to the top and kind of breaking. Because if you get it to a boil, your bread dumplings they're just gonna fall apart. They're just disintegrate. So, well, this isn't good because I have zero backup plans for this. I messed up in one other. I shouldn't say that. I didn't mess up. So I bought it called for white bread, or if you could find an unseasoned, what do you want to call it? Unseasoned, like a bread stuffing that's already cubed up for you, that works. So I bought it was just like white bread, bread rolls. Went to the grocery store, got it. This called for 11 ounces. I think it was like 13. So I take it out of the package, leave it out. I actually put it in the stove just so my cat's going to get at it. Day of, get it out. I start chopping it outside, almost like that crouton from drying out, but inside was still tender, right? Like how we think bread should be. It called for then at that point to get hot milk, 1 cup of it, and then dump it over 11 ounces of your breadcrumbs. And I did measure this out. So I did have leftover breadcrumbs, and I thought to myself at that point, well, I don't need these anymore, and I threw them away. Later in the recipe, it says, after the mixture is there and it seems too moist, do not add flour. Add more breadcrumbs, or, your crusty bread. So I'm like, oh, well, there goes that idea. I threw it away, so I'm like, well, all right, what's our backup plan? So I open the fridge. Well, Matt needs to go grocery shopping. I look in the fridge. I have 0 bread. So it's like I'm sitting there thinking, all right, how am I going to do this? Because I really don't have a backup plan. I probably have some breadcrumbs, but probably like panko or something. It's like, I guess worst case, I'll grab that. I'm like, do I not put all the milk in? I said, no, let's just put all the milk in. So anyways, put all the milk in. Wait 20, 30 minutes for it all to kind of get incorporated. Off on the side during that period of time, took a quarter cup of finely diced yellow onion and a tablespoon of butter, give or take, and then kind of, you don't want to char them, just get them translucent, pull them. An optional thing in this recipe was some bacon, diced and then fried until crisp. Called for 4 strips. So I'm like, you know what? That sounds good. Let's do it. So I cut the bacon. I try getting it really small, right? Because I'm thinking bread dumpling. I don't want big hunks of bacon, but I kind of want to bring that saltiness, that bacon to it, right? I mean, what isn't good with bacon? So I kind of make that ahead of time as everything's soaking. And then you add, so it's the egg. I'm sorry, not the egg. The bread and milk mixture is all mixed together. The 2 large eggs, kind of lightly beaten. Put it in there. 3 tablespoons of freshly chopped parsley, fresh parsley. I didn't add any salt because of the bacon. I had a pinch. They called for a quarter teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper and an 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and then breadcrumbs as needed. So mixing it all together, kind of get it all well mixed together. And then it's kind of funny because they said form into tennis ball sized, balls. So I'm like, all right, I got 4 out of it. It called for, I think it said 4 to 7. I got 4. There's 4 people here that I have to feed. So I'm like, all right, kind of get them. I won't lie. I'm at this point, I'm a little worried about the consistency. It's like I get them together and then reading the recipe, thinking of, if you boil the meat, they will fall apart. And that's the last thing I want. So I'm like, man, these seem looser than what they should be. So I roll them up. I'm like, I'll just put them in the fridge. Maybe that'll cool them up a little bit. Maybe the egg will cool up. Maybe it'll bind together a little better. So I get my pot going, right? At this point, I waited to get this cooked. I waited to drop this in the water till I put my beef back into the gravy and just kind of have that warming up. So that way the timing I didn't have cold meat or cold dumplings. So I got these four massive dumplings, drop them nicely into this water and cook for 15 to 20. I went the full 20 just in case. Carefully spoon them out and then assemble. So, put some red cabbage. I actually went back after tasting the gravy on the meat and the bread dumpling. I went back and grabbed more gravy and put it over the bread dumpling. Personal opinion on the bread dumpling, I think it was done well. I think it was a decent recipe. For me, it's just a little weird. Like I'm not one for soggy cereal, right? Like if I eat cereal, it's got to be nice and crisp. And for me, eat that outer part because it's just been not boiling, but cooked in a warm bath. It was soft, right? Soft bread. I don't like soggy bread. Innards, I mean, flavor was fine. So once I got past that outer layer, I had no problem with it. I thought it was good. I think it went over well. I think my father was the kind of the biggest skeptic of it. And after he bit into it, he really enjoyed it. So that was good because I did go out on a limb deciding to go and cook a German meal based on what I thought he once enjoyed. For someone who really doesn't enjoy that cuisine, he at least lied well to me and said it was really good. So I'll take it. Like I said, I thought it was good. So anyways, back to the tart. So I bought some strawberries, and then they had a mixed like container, had what was it? Blueberries, blackberries, I believe, and raspberries. So I kind of cut them up, and I left them off to the side, so everyone could kind of assemble their tart as they wanted. So before they got there, I decided to put the custard inside the tarts themselves. And I didn't want to do it too early, fearing that the custard would ruin the integrity of my crust, right? Make it soft, make it soggy. One thing I do recall from that class was, I think it was like took like some sort of chocolate, had it melted, and then kind of line it and to kind of create that barrier between the crust and then your custard or caramel. I didn't do that. I just waited probably an hour prior, put it in there. It did not ruin any integrity of it. But what I did notice is, because I had refrigerated the custard overnight, it was kind of hard. So I went to, or I shouldn't say hard, it thickened up. So I went to spoon it into my crusts, and it was a little tougher. Like it presentation wise wasn't the greatest because it wasn't nice and smooth. Had I gotten it maybe cooled down, right, poured into the crust and then put it in the refrigerator to kind of cool down, it would have been, from pouring it, a lot smoother, right, more of a glossy finish. And then, like I said, I cut it was serve yourself. There was the fruit. Throw on what you want and enjoy. And I mean, that's just, I really enjoy that. Like, I think I could eat that for breakfast. I didn't even say how you bake it, so my apologies. So I baked it at, I believe it was 325 for like 20 minutes. I actually looked online because that was one thing I wasn't sure, I didn't remember, because they kind of did it off to the side during the class, was that baking of that. I'm like, I don't know how I bake it. So I looked at a few recipes. I went with a little longer time, a little lower temperature. And it turned out well, although I did notice, because I ended up doing 2 batches because I had enough of the crust, was I was poking holes in the bottom, but it like not fully. And what I noticed is the dough kind of rose up, or the crust kind of rose up, and it kind of took away some of that surface area. So second batch, I made sure to stab them well, get them all the way through. That kept them a little flatter. Still a little rise on them, but all in all, not bad. I mean, I did have the tart shells, or pans, so to say. Like, I think they're about 4-inch. But it turned out well. All in all, I thought it was a good dinner. Like I said, that walk away, you cook something for the first time, you're gonna run into some things, right? You're gonna learn from that experience. And for me, it was doing a rolled meat, right? It's not something. Now I'm thinking about it, I haven't stuffed anything really. I've never really rolled a meat like this and then cooked it. I mean, I've braised things, I've cooked things a lot of different ways, but I've never done like a roll, right? Like the roulade. So, I mean, a lot of good points taken. You know what? Go to the butcher, have them, tell them 1/4 inch, pound it out so it's thinner. Don't be afraid to make one big one, right? Or a couple big ones and just cut it in half and then share it, right? And don't be afraid, and don't skip out on the insides of it. Like I said, I was a little worried that I have too much pickle in it or too much onion. And really, where I ran into the issue, had I done more, would have been it would have been just squirting out because of how thin a couple of my pieces ended up being. So I hope you all give it a try if you haven't, or you can chuckle at me in my attempts to do it. Good recipe, great meal, and even better was being able to spend time with my father. That doesn't last forever, so if you're fortunate enough to, you gotta cherish those times, family, friends, while you have it, right? So cook, try different things, and have fun, right? It's not always going to work out, but it's fun. The journey is the fun part. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Jamie, on behalf of Jamie, I'm Matt, and we are Shade Tree Chefs.